Good morning to you, my dear viewers, and welcome to the Today's Women's Show. I'm sure you're waiting to find out what we're going to be talking about today. Today is a conversation between Audrey and Audrey. I'm sure you're wondering which Audrey I'm talking about, but if you stay tuned, you'll find out in a few moments. Before we get started, as always, my quote. And my quote this morning is from O.G. Mandino. And it says, "So long as there's breath in me, that long I will persist. For now I know one of the greatest principles on success. If I persist long enough, I will win." Welcome back to Today's Women's Show. Don't forget, you can always join this conversation by going to our Facebook and Twitter pages. Now, I'm sure you're wondering who my guest is. There's always a little clip to show you.
Professor Audrey Gadzekpo is an associate professor at the School of Communication Studies, University of Ghana. She has more than 22 years' experience in teaching, research and advocacy in media, gender and governance, and more than 27 years' practical experience as a journalist, working variously as a reporter, editor, contributor, columnist, talk show host, socio-political commentator, and magazine publisher and editor. Professor Gadzekpo obtained a doctorate degree in African Studies at the University of Birmingham, UK, a Master of Arts in Communications from Brigham Young University, Utah, USA, and a Bachelor of Arts in English from the University of Ghana. Her research interests and publications reflect the nexus between media and gender, media, politics and democratic governance, media and developmental imperatives, and media and conflict. She teaches courses in print journalism, media, culture and society, gender and communication, introduction to gender, qualitative research methods, media ethics, and history of media in Africa. She has also designed curricula for Bachelor of Arts and Masters of Arts programs and developed short courses targeted at journalists and academia. Audrey has conducted numerous training sessions for the media, public sector organizations, civil society organizations, and security sector organizations, including the Ghana Armed Forces Staff College, the Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Training Center, and Ghana Police Training College. Her publications can be found in several academic journals and books.
Here's the short introductory film didn't tell you that she's the first female professor of the Department of Communication Studies at the University of Ghana. And I introduce to you Professor Audrey Gadzekpo. Audrey, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Audrey. I'm happy to be here.
I'm very happy. You're the first Audrey I've got had in the studio. So it's a conversation between Audrey and Audrey. And also the first female. I'm flattered to have the first female professor in communication studies chatting with me today. Now, what exactly is communication studies?
Communication studies actually looks at a number of smaller disciplines within what we call communication. And it could encompass anything from media studies, because it's a major form of communication, mass comm, to interpersonal communication, to group communication, and also an important aspect of what we do and teach are the theoretical underpinnings of the way we communicate, or the contents of what is communicated.
Okay. Now, your bachelor's, your first degree was in English and history.
Yes.
How did you go and that translate to communications for you?
English and history were my favorite subjects. So I really like to read about things that have happened in the past.
Okay.
And if you think that they say that the newspapers are the first draft of history, then it's not such a jump, is it?
That you went into it, yes.
Yes, and then using language, English.
English, you have to have good English. A good command of the language.
And so when I was looking for what I wanted to do as a career after having a liberal arts degree. You know, family thought she has to be a lawyer. I'm argumentative. I wasn't so persuaded. I wasn't that attracted to law. And I've always liked to talk. I in primary school, I must confess, I don't think I saw a single report on myself that didn't say
she talks too much in class. She talks
too much. So it would be all the compliments. She does it, but she talks too much in class. And so, in a sense, I combined my love for talking, my love for meeting people, and my skills and love for writing, you know, together. And I thought, well,
you'll give a shot at
I think I should be in the media.
In the media.
Yes.
Now, how has your journey been in the media?
It's been interesting. It didn't, in a certain sense, one of my students reminded me in a conversation that actually he thinks my journey started earlier than I thought it did, because he brought me copies of the Achimotan,
which you had contributed to.
Which had consistently contributed to. I was quite surprised at how much contribution I had in the Achimotan, which was our school magazine.
Yes.
And Audrey, we went to the same school.
Of course we did.
And so I saw that, but really, I didn't quite think about it that way. After I finished my first degree, I went to the U.S., Brigham Young University, to study communication studies. Okay. And that's when I began to really get into the media. Yes. And it was a nice journey because Brigham Young is a small university in the U.S. in Provo, Utah, very well endowed. So they had a daily newspaper.
Okay.
Called the Daily Universe. Of course, I was contributing. I was contributing, and in the end, I won a little award. It was called for intellectual curiosity, and the nickname is the Snoopy Award. You know, very curious and always snooping around, and so that helped very much. That even at that stage, every day I was writing and contributing. Not very easy considering I came from a different culture.
Yeah.
And even one of the first lessons was how to spell the American way, because you get penalized if you spell the British way.
Yes, of course. Potato, tomato,
color, and all of those things,
Yes.
But it was, and I did realize, even as I studied, how much I enjoyed media work. And so afterwards, I did eventually get a job. I did a bit of freelancing for a while, which was tough, but I got a job working for a weekly newspaper in the U.S.
Okay.
And worked there for a few years, starting from a general assignment reporter to being the entertainment editor and eventually editing the paper. So that was great.
But then you came back home.
I did, because how could I not? You know, I decided I wanted to be a journalist. I love being in the media. However, at the time that I left Ghana, the media was a very constricted space. We really, to cut a long story short, really, if you worked in the media, you probably were working for state-owned media, and there were all of those restrictions to freedom of speech and expression. So even though that's what I studied, I had no great desire to
want to be in it,
work in it back home.
Yes.
I had the opportunity to work in it in the U.S.
where you could be who you were.
Exactly, but the moment we started transitioning to democratic rule and the restrictions on the media were lifted. For example, the newspaper licensing law was lifted in 1991, and then newspapers like the Chronicle were established.
And things like that.
And the Chronicle invited me to contribute a column from the U.S. So I was working in the U.S.
But
and contributing a column.
Okay.
And that was really a lovely opportunity.
For you to get yourself known on the local scene.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And for me to play around with, what it is that I wanted my public voice to sound like. And because I was in the U.S., the articles were talking about the connections between us and the U.S. and happenings and immigrant life in the U.S. and that sort of thing. So it was a nice transition back to Ghana. Now, the transition back to Ghana was determined by our transition to democratic
democracy.
rule. I just knew that I had to be in Ghana in time to cover the elections, that the first democratic elections. Of course, I didn't cover it in a big way because I had this connection with the Ghanaian Chronicles, which was where most of my coverage can be seen, but not in a as robust a way as I would like, because I came back just a month before
the
elections in October of 1992, and the elections were in November of 1992. Then January 1993,
we transited. Yes,
we became
a republic,
a new Ghana,
the new Ghana,
under the Fourth Republic.
Yes, under the Fourth Republic. Now, you're now at the university and you're lecturing. So, at what point did the bug, the lecturing bug, catch you?
Well, it was part of the backup plan coming back to Ghana. I had a master's degree, so I was hoping I could lecture at the university. I like, sharing information, so I thought that could work very well. And so when I came back, I applied before I came back to the University of Ghana, and
you got
when
it. You got
came
in
back, I finally got in, and that was good. They needed somebody to teach print journalism at the School of Communication Studies, and
you've been doing that since.
Yes,
and you find yourself today the head of that department.
Absolutely, yes.
You've worked your way. You've earned it.
I think so.
You've earned it.
Yes.
But it seems like you have a special interest in communications and gender.
Yes.
Are you a feminist?
Yes.
Oh, she says.
I'm absolutely a feminist.
Okay. Where a feminist means what?
I think feminist means anybody who recognizes there's inequality between men and women and wants to do something about it. That person is a feminist, actively seeks to do something about it. And I do it through my work with the media and in the media.
So that's what drives you.
Yes.
With gender issues.
Yes. Yes.
Because I know this week you were busy lecturing on communications and gender in one of the centers here in Accra.
Yes.
So you're known for that.
Yes, and people invite me to do that, and I absolutely enjoy it because you always start from a place where people have been socialized to think in certain ways, and particularly to be defensive, particularly the males, to be defensive anytime they hear the word gender. And you gradually bring them to a place where they see the logic of why it is that things happen in this way but are not normal, and why it is that we need to begin to do things differently and look at things differently.
Do you think things are changing in the direction that we are seeing more of equality between both genders?
Yes, in certain ways we are, but in other ways too, progress has stagnated, or I shall say retrogressed. You see, there's progress when you look in our classrooms, for example. When you see, I am from the university community, so if I see the best prize in medicine, female, best prize in law, female, and I look even in my own classroom, where when I joined the school, we needed to keep a conscious eye on our gender ratio, and we tried to attract women into the program. Otherwise, we'll be disproportionately male-dominated. Now we don't bother to do that anymore because it's self-corrected. Now we have equal numbers of males as females applying into a program, and so we just take the cream of the crop, and we find that we do, yes, and we find that we have perfect gender balance. When I joined the faculty, there was another female faculty member who had joined just the year before. Otherwise, I think for most of the history of the school, dating back to 1972, it was a male history. Until I joined in 1993. I think she joined in 1992.
Or 91.
But now we have other female faculty members. And it shows you that there's progress. However, today, one of the things I shared with the class that I was lecturing in at the Kofi Annan International Peace Training Center, was to show images, advertising images, for example, which are important, strong media images that show how we denigrate women still. So despite the progress, and you can show all the empowering images, there are all of these other disempowering images as well.
What do you think that we as a people, we as women, could actually do to ensure that, because that image that's portrayed through the media when it comes to advertising is actually very, very negative?
Yes.
And what can we do about, I mean, do you think as collectively, as a society, if we choose, like in Ghanaian women, we're standing up, we're not going to be portrayed as sex objects, I mean, because that's what really it is.
Yes.
You know, what can we do?
Yeah. Well, I mean, quite a few years ago, there was actually a group, I didn't really know them, but there was a group called Sisters Against Gendered Advertising, something like that. And they issued a statement about some of the things. But I don't think that they organized enough, you know. But we can begin to speak up. You know, we can all do things in our little spheres of life. I happen to teach, so I teach a course which I designed on gender and communication. And you begin to sensitize people even from that level, from the classroom, as to how it is that the media is gendered and what we can do about it. And then on a larger activist level, you have initiatives like the Women's Manifesto for Africa, for example, which has different sections on what we ought to be addressing for gender equality in our country. And there's a section on the media, and so we address some of those things, and we use it to lobby industry, media industry certainly, and also our politicians as well. So we can do all.
There's a lot of things that can be done.
And then when there's particularly outrageous manifestations of that, why? We can congregate, we can demonstrate, we can, you know, send strong statements against it. So we must always be conscious of it, you know. And it's not just women, it's a fight for both men and women. Well. Because when you talk about gender, it's about male and female. And one of the things I was pointing out also is that, you know, a gendered society doesn't always advantage men, because that the issues of masculinity too, and you're being pressured to show your masculinity in ways that in the end damage you. Okay, so if society says that you're a man, so you must be sexually aggressive,
you have men that are out there who are doing what they should be doing.
They become predators. Okay, exactly. And that's not very good for you, you know.
So it's striking the balance, really.
Yes.
It's striking the balance. Yes. But you've come under attack a lot, I mean, well, in the past, not so much this way. In the recent past, you know, by other people from your comments.
Well, I always say it's par for the course. If you're in the public limelight and you speak out, then it's okay for people who disagree with you to bash you a little, to disagree with you publicly. You know, I mean, I take exception, however, if it becomes abusive, you know, although, again, being a media person, I know that sometimes it can degenerate. But by all means, you can disagree with me, and you can bash me a little bit when I'm in the public.
You're ready for it.
I am.
But you're very strong, I should say that.
Well, thank you, but I think that's a feminine trait, isn't it?
But you don't look it when one sees you.
Strong.
Women are very strong.
Yes.
Women are very strong. I always tell people women are very strong. We play the games, but we're very strong ultimately. Yes. Welcome back to today's Women's Show. My sponsors are Cousins Baby. For every baby, there's a Cousins Baby. And my latest sponsor on the block is Woodine Le Createur. Thank you so much. It's because of them I always say that I'm sitting right here bringing you good tidings. And today it's a conversation with Professor Audrey Gadzekpo. Now, we've spoken about your work. There was one question I actually wanted to ask you before we veered off that topic totally. What do you think of the current state of journalism in the country?
It's a work in progress. It's a work in progress because there's a lot more we ought to be doing to make journalism much better. I don't think that we serve the public well when we don't do enough research, when we're not accurate in what we bring, when we focus on the trivial, when there's so many serious issues that we ought to be covering. So we are a work in progress.
We'll get there one day.
We have to, and some of us will continue to defend journalism and at the same time hold them to improve upon what it is that they're producing. Yeah.
I know when I said that we're going to talk about family life before we went off air, you were beaming with happiness. It's a part of your life that you hold very dear.
Absolutely. And I feel like I have the best family in the whole wide world.
Because you come from there's a good support system in your home.
Absolutely.
I know that because I know that you and your siblings are all like one big family.
Yes.
But I mean, after a long day's work, you unwind and you go back home. What's the best? What's one thing that you do that takes your mind off a very hectic day?
I go and I chill sometimes with a glass of wine. Not every day, I don't want you to think I'm a lash, but particularly on Fridays, because you've been running
around
the entire
Monday
week,
to Friday.
From morning to night. Sometimes my day starts at 6:30. I'm in front of my computer.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because and that's another thing about being an academic and juggling so many balls is you have to find spaces to do your academic work. If you're a bit of an activist,
compartmentalize all aspects of your life.
Absolutely. So you need to find space for all of that, and that can take you from morning into the night. I mean, it's quite usual, even on weekdays, to find me coming back from work, plonking on my bed, but surrounded by books or something that I have to read anyways. Maybe with a glass of wine in my hand, maybe it's a glass of water or something like that.
Or the remote. Do you watch any TV at all?
Oh, yes, I do sometimes when I particularly want to unwind. I've gotten into this routine now, if I can afford it, because sometimes your weekends are not yours. But Saturday mornings, to just tell myself, don't jump out of bed. Just laze in bed, drink your coffee, because that's something that I do in the morning. Drink your nice, fresh brewed coffee, turn on the TV, watch trash on TV.
I like the way you say watch trash. It just takes your mind off everything else and it makes you dream.
Yes.
But I mean, you're very proud of your daughter, Nubuki.
Yes.
Your greatest, what would you say, what would you call her?
The joy of my life,
the greatest joy of your life.
Absolutely.
She is, and she's in her teens now.
She's in her teens, and you know what I find gratifying? I feel lucky because people say, when, your children are in their teens, they
have all the kinds of issues.
And they don't like you very much and all of that. But we still remain very close and we can chit-chat and bond all the time. She still prefers to sleep in my bed rather than her own bed.
Don't worry, I have the same in my house.
Yeah, it's not the healthiest, But
it doesn't matter. I just say to myself, they'll grow into their own space.
Yes.
When they grow older. Somebody says that you do it more for you than you do it for the child. And I said, not really. I mean, I think that it's a bond. I mean, I have all my 3 kids will jump into my bed at any point in time. They want to go, Mommy, I'm going to sleep with you. They fight with who's sleeping which side.
Right.
But it's healthy, I think.
Yes.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Yes, and at times they'll go to their room and it makes you wonder, is there a pattern to when they don't mind going to their room?
When they want to have certain conversations you are not supposed to be privy to.
Exactly, then they go into their room. But it's gratifying to be a mother too, because it gives a certain balance and a certain purpose to your life.
Was it a difficult thing to do? Was it a difficult task to be able to be that mother and be this prof that you are?
Yes, because it takes a lot of juggling. I had my daughter in the midst of doing a PhD because I got my PhD later. I started teaching with a master's before I went back to get my PhD. Yes. And so, I was a mother whilst I was working on my PhD. And so my daughter spent most of her tummy life in the library.
She was with you, huh?
Following
you everywhere.
Everywhere. I even got part of my supervision in the hospital.
Oh my goodness, you're joking.
You know, yeah. I had a session with my supervisor who was kind enough to come to the hospital because I had a problem and I needed to be in hospital. But I was very anxious to get as much work done as possible because everybody assured me that, you know, even though you may have a bit of a problem when you're pregnant, you know, it's more, you have even more of a problem when the baby is out.
Oh, I always say. It's when you're pregnant, it's just you. When the baby comes, you have a responsibility of that life.
I mean, you know, I thought, you know, I couldn't imagine doing without sleep. But, you know, that's something you have to do because the baby is not going to allow you to sleep anyway. You know. Yeah. And then you have to keep your eye on the ball, finish. And I managed to finish on time. Didn't need any extensions or any of that stuff, you know. And so, yeah, there was quite a bit of juggling to do.
Now, last week we celebrated Mother's Day.
Yes.
Would you say that being a mother has been one of your greatest achievements?
Yes, absolutely. And challenges as well. Because it does make you a little bit more conscious of what you do and conscious of a great responsibility that you have to make sure that this child is better than you. My mother said that my daughter was me and a half when she was born or when she was growing up. You know, the book has Audrey and a half, you know, and I get that, you know, and
when you look at her, you can't believe that was you, though. You don't remember those.
Oh, I see those signs, you know, and sometimes I say, I'm sure my mother is saying quietly in her head, "Yeah, God punish you."
You deserved
you
it
know?
For all the wahala you brought as well.
I wouldn't want a different child at all, you know. I enjoy her spirit. I enjoy that she's challenging. But she's also loving.
But she's a loving child. I would say that for myself because, you know, she hung out with the kids because of her cousin Mawina.
Yes.
You know, and she would run up to you. She's just a very warm person.
She is.
Very, very warm child. So it's kudos to you because normally they say when you have just one child, they tend to be a bit reserved because they're not used to being around people. But she's a very, very warm child.
Yes.
You're blessed for that.
Yes, I feel blessed.
You're blessed.
Yes.
Now, we're almost done, sort of time to let you go, your sweet time. But before that, I'm going to quote some words from Manasseh Azuri Awuni, a fellow journalist. And in one of his articles, he actually said, whilst we celebrate Mandela, let us also make time to look beyond politicians and see potential Mandelas in ourselves. Let us look beyond the corrupt and non-performing officials and see the likes of Dr. Joyce Ayi and Professor Audrey Gadzekpo, who are quietly making great change irrespective of how modest it is. They are the real heroes and heroines of society. How does that make you feel hearing things like that? I
feel very honored that he would say those words about me. I mean, I am a teacher and I'm his teacher, and so it's good to know that you're appreciated by your students. I think it's our reward, you know. They say a teacher's reward is in heaven, but sometimes it's on earth. In the way that your students appreciate what you do and how they make you proud. And I have to say that students don't forget their teachers, really.
They never do, especially when they've got special ones. When they have special ones, they never really forget them.
They've been very validating.
When all is said and done, what would you like Audrey to be remembered for?
I like people to say that she brightened her little corner where she was.
That's how you'd like to be remembered.
Yes.
And I think you're doing a very good job. Here in the studio today, you brightened our set by being here.
Thank you.
And we're not going to let you go without honoring you, Professor Audrey Gadzekpo, for being today's woman.
Well, thank you. I'm really honored.
With your name engraved on there.
Oh, lovely.
Just to honor you and thank you for coming on here.
Thank you.
For me, it's been a great joy chatting with you. And I really do hope that somewhere along the line, journalism, the media, takes real responsibility for what they put out there to us who are watching, or we do to those who are watching us.
Absolutely. Thank you, Audrey. It's been a pleasure.
You're welcome.
Keep on doing what you're doing. You do it very well.
Thank you very much. And that's me getting A from my professor.